Tony Harris again. Glad to be with you. I bring you greetings from the U.S., the United States of America, in the village of Cincinnati, Ohio. Sulamu Nakaribu. It's a blessing to be with you this day. Today, I will be your mental health coach, and I'll be talking to you about mental health and finding a pathway to hope. Picture, if you will, you're driving down Thika Highway or maybe Mombasa Highway, and there are many exits that you can take as it pertains to mental health. You want to take the right exit. You see the first exit. The first exit says confusion. You wonder if you should take that one. It seems closer to home. And then the second exit says traditional views of the past, and you wonder about taking that exit. Will it take you? Will it get you to the place you need to be? And then the last exit says understanding, and you realize that that's what you need, and you take that exit. So hopefully by the end of this lesson, you will have some understanding about mental health conditions that will bring you hope, and you'll be able to apply some of the thoughts to your life and seek the help that you need, either for yourself or for someone else. But first, I want us to look at some statistics, and then I want us to look at a word that is often used in the medical profession or the mental health profession called stigma. 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 And stigma is where people have attitudes, misconceptions that lead to prejudice, discrimination, and stereotypes about people who may have a mental health condition. So we want to address those attitudes and those misconceptions so that we can have true freedom and real hope for those who need it. So let's look at some statistics. Research shows that there are about 11.5 million people in Kenya that suffer from a mental health condition. That means 1 out of 4 are being untreated or have not been treated due to a dramatic shortage of mental health specialists. 50% of all lifetime mental illnesses begin by the age of 14, and 75% have an onset of mental health conditions by the age of 24 years of age. And so that's dealing with individuals that are maybe in your age bracket, those who are graduating college, those who are entering college, and those who are in maybe secondary school begin to have and to struggle with mental health conditions. And so this is a prime time to get help and to get a better understanding. According to the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine, and also the World Health Organization, there are about 100 psychiatrists in Kenya. And I found most of those to be based in Nairobi, and outside of Nairobi, there is one psychiatrist per 1 million. That's one psychiatrist for 1 million people in the population. And so there is a great need for mental health practitioners to provide counseling services and to help individuals along the way. And so also we want to look at the fact that mental illnesses are common in the United States. Nearly 1 in 5 U.S. adults live with a mental illness. That means that's 51.5 million people in the United States with a condition. Mental illnesses include many different conditions that vary in degree of severity from mild to moderate to severe. And they have basically 2 categories where you look at those with any mental illness, and then there are those with serious mental illness. And but we often look at it in the construct of any mental illness. Mental health conditions are basically disturbances in a person's thinking, feeling, and or behavior, or a combination of both that reflects a problem in mental function. They can have distress or disability in their social life, or in their work, or in their family activities. And like I say, just as we have physical illness and we have treatments for that, we also have mental illness that encompasses a more mental health condition, and there is treatment for that. We ought to treat it the same. Then there are other disorders such as anxiety disorders. When you look at an anxiety disorder in general, anyone can experience anxiety. But when symptoms become unmanageable or overwhelming and constant, it can lead to a anxiety disorder. This is where stress levels can affect your overall daily living as well as your physical health. Then there's PTSD. This is a physical or psychological response to a trauma event such as a disaster, a serious accident, maybe a war or some combat. Maybe there someone experienced a rape or a terrorist attack. These thoughts are relived or events over and over in their mind, both mentally and emotionally. And then there is social anxiety disorder, where people may have anxiety just from being in crowds of people or being around certain people where they begin to experience anxiety. I remember that my sister was in an accident where she had a friend that died, and that was a traumatic experience for her. And I remember her getting the help that she needed. She needed someone to talk to. And then there are mood disorders, major depression, a clinical diagnosis of sadness or feelings of hopelessness. Many experience erratic sleep patterns, low self esteem, guilt, loss of appetite, tiredness, excessive crying, just crying for no reason. You don't even know why. And this would last for more than 2 weeks. And someone professionally would say, okay, you are clinically depressed, and they diagnose you. That must be done by a medical professional. Then there's dysthymia, which is a milder form of depression, but it's more chronic. It lasts longer, but it's not as strong as major depression. It can last up to 6 months or more. And then there's bipolar disorder, which is a dramatic shift in a person's mood, whereby they experience these very high energies and these very low moods that almost bring them to a point of depression. We call this mania when they have these high energy moods, and then we call it depression when their mood or energy is so low that they feel hopeless. And then there's substance-induced mood disorders caused or brought on by the use of drugs or alcohol or medication abuse or over the counter medication abuse. And sometimes these can lead to tragic accidents, self harm, and sometimes even suicide. Because why? They're trying to address the thinking, they're trying to change the way they think, they're trying to change the way they feel, which sometimes leads to the behavior that they do not want or an outcome that can be tragic or dangerous, where it be, say, a car accident or, like, say, someone self harming. And then there are psychotic disorders where there's a distortion in reality, such as schizophrenia. That's a mental illness that my own mom, she suffered from when she was 18 years of age. She had an onset of schizophrenia and was diagnosed. And I'll just share that with you. But I want to talk about stigma. Stigma comes from a lack of understanding and fear regarding mental health, and how it leads to prejudice, stereotypes, and discrimination on all social fronts. See, researchers identify different types of stigma. There is public stigma, which involves the negative or discriminatory attitudes that others have about mental illness. There's self-stigma, which refers to negative attitudes, including internalizing shame that people with mental illness have about their own condition. And then there is institutional stigma, which is more systemic, involving policies of government and private organizations that intentionally or sometimes unintentionally limit opportunities for people with mental illness. Examples include lower funding for mental illness research or fewer mental health services relative to the health care. In the justice and legal system, they criminalize those who have mental health conditions and they refuse to get them the help that they need. And so there is injustice that is done. And then within the medical profession, they tend to not support them as often, or there's some discriminatory practices within the healthcare where you need to advocate more on their behalf. So when we look at public stigma, there are certain stereotypes The stereotypes for public stigma is people with mental illness are dangerous, incompetent, to blame for their own disorder, and they're unpredictable. And how do they discriminate? The, they discriminate. They may not hire them. Landlords may not rent to them, and the healthcare system may offer a lower standard of care to the individuals. When it comes to self stigma, how does one stereotype and prejudice themselves? I'm too dangerous. I'm incompetent and I'm to blame. So they may feel that way. And they discriminate upon themselves by saying these thoughts lead to lower self esteem and self efficacy. So they say, why try? Someone like me is not worthy of good health care, so I might as well give up. So they have feelings of hopelessness. And then at the institutional level, there are stereotypes that are embodied in the very laws of the institution. Say like the criminal justice system, where there are unfair laws against those that have mental health conditions, and no one advocates on their behalf. They may not have a lawyer that can stand up for them, and so they receive a loss of opportunities when it comes to discrimination. Stigma associated with mental illness has been shown to have devastating effects on the lives of family members. Psychiatric orders or disorders has an effect on them, has an effect on family and those who care for the family. In addition to those challenges, you have the religious community, whereby supernatural, religious, or magical approaches play an important role in creating stigma against the mentally ill. I understand that in Kenya and in certain parts throughout the U.S., people believe mental illness is a doing of evil or demonic activity. And these ideas have made it difficult for millennials to really address it openly. Often, the family members unintentionally promote stigma because they feel that they're the blame and responsible for having brought the mental disorder, either through negligence or inadequate care. And so there is this systemic institutionalized discrimination and prejudice, even in religion, when it comes to mental health conditions. Many believe that those who develop mental disorders do so to atone for sins committed against ancestors or as a result of being bewitched. They believe that those who have developed these mental disorders have done so to atone for sins or committed against the ancestors or as a result of being bewitched. And such stigmas pervade society and they hinder health-seeking behavior, because if you think you have a demon, if you think that you're one who's being singled out as someone who has a curse upon them, you're not going to go and get medical help. And I know that a lot of people feel that way, and so they keep it to themselves, and it becomes the little dark secret of the family. And so this has to be addressed, moreover, to avoid curses. Some people, society says that you can inherit these evil spirits or demons, and societal members of society, especially women, are taught to even avoid people who have been afflicted with a mental illness because they think that they can inherit it, or somehow the demon can be transferred from one person to the mother or even the child itself. And so these distortions in thought, things that are not true. There's a verse in the Bible says, the truth shall make you free. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free or set you free. There is a great need to facilitate media campaigns to educate the public in rural areas and to provide more resources for treatment to improve lives in Kenya and around the world. If we were to apply the successful strategies against the stigma of HIV and AIDS, I believe more people around the world and in Kenya can alleviate feelings of shame, blame, and guilt, and they can improve their lives, especially when we talk about addressing it in a institutionalized way, whether it be through a church or through traditions of the family or history. the way that people have done it in the past. So I want to give you some suggestions and some tips to help reduce stigma. Just remember the word rice, R-I-C-E. The first is respect. Every person has worth and they have value and should be treated with dignity. We should be also careful to use language that honors them and respects them. There are some things that we shouldn't say, some things that we can say. So here's some tips. Do not say this. That's crazy, psycho, insane, or he's nuts. Instead, say, that's wild, that's bizarre, that's odd, that's eccentric. Don't say, it drives me crazy, but do say, it annoys me. Don't say, he is a paranoid schizophrenic. Do say, he has paranoid schizophrenia. Don't say she has OCD or she is OCD, but instead say she has obsessive compulsive disorder. Do don't say she's mentally retarded. That word, let's take that out your vocabulary. Retarded. Do not say that at all. But you can say they may have an intellectual disability or developmental disability. And even using the word disability, you want to use that with caution. Don't say a person is mentally ill. You can say he has a mental health condition or a diagnosis. And so there are some tips on how you can show dignity and respect, and that individual who may have a condition should be treated with value. The next is identify. Identify and have compassion and empathy with the individual. You want to treat someone the way that you would want to be treated, and even better than you would want to be treated. Treat them the way they want to be treated as well. As long as it's honorable to them, treat them the way that they would want to be treated, which means you have to ask and don't assume. Know what someone needs by identifying with them. You can have empathy, you can have compassion. And empathy is, let's say, you don't necessarily have to feel and know everything that they feel, but you can identify with their feelings and have empathy with them. And certainly you can have compassion for them. But don't let that lead to just sympathy. Oh, I'm so sorry for you. That can take on the air of that I'm better than someone else. And no, we're not. But we can certainly empathize. And then C, respect confidentiality. Confidentiality. So with this, if you need to find someone to talk to, whoever you talk with, respect confidentiality. Make sure that they respect your confidentiality, where they're not telling everybody what you are saying to them without your permission. And if someone comes to you, make sure that you respect their confidentiality as well. Feel free to talk openly about mental health concerns and bring awareness via social media. Build value, build trust in a relationship. Do not share openly what someone shares privately without their permission. Exceptions are if a person is seeking to harm themselves or others, then you have a duty to report to mental health caregivers to get them the help that they need. And so respect confidentiality. I think it's one thing that is missing in our society today. But also, we cannot keep secrets that keep us in bondage, and that they are harmful. And then we want to make sure that we exercise equality and education. Treat mental health just as you would your physical health, and avoid discriminating and prejudices against anyone with a mental health condition. Respond to misconceptions or negative comments by sharing facts and then give a personal experience. You know, every now and then, any one of us can get stuck. Picture, if you will, you're going down that, let's say, thicker highway again, and it's rainy season, and you run off the side of the road, and the car is working well. You didn't wreck the car; it just got stuck in the mud, and you just needed a little bit of help to get out of the mud. You didn't need anyone to tow you out. You just needed, the car didn't need to be taken to a mechanic to be fixed. You just needed an additional help to get you out of the mud. Sometimes we get stuck like that in our mind. We get stuck like that in our emotions, and we just need a little bit of help. Someone to give me a word of encouragement, someone to inspire me, someone to talk to that can help me get through my mental situation, maybe my mental crisis. And maybe I need to talk with a counselor or a psychiatrist or someone in my faith community who can provide a different perspective than what I have. And so in order to get stuck, I have three things I want you to get unstuck. I want you to think about these things. First, recognize when you need help. And you sometime in recognizing when you need help is you got to share that little dark secret with somebody, because some secrets are destructive if you keep them inside of you alone. Some secrets can be destructive if you keep that secret inside of you and it has hindered you from functioning. It has caused you emotional trauma and you're dealing with it by yourself. That can be more dangerous than actually telling it. And then sometimes you may not even know that you need help. So you need to talk with someone so that you can get a better perspective and a better understanding about your situation, about how you're feeling and how you're thinking. And once you talk with someone, you may say, wow, I'm normal. I'm not, this is not something that everybody else is going through the same thing I'm going through, where I thought it was something where I needed to talk with the professional. Or you may say, hey, I found out that I really do need to talk with someone because I'm not eating, I'm not sleeping well, I feel hopeless, and I feel drained. So recognize when you need help. Then the next one is renew. Renew the mind. One of the therapies or interventions that they use is called cognitive behavioral therapy. And what it seeks to do is if I can get you to change the way you think, I can get you to change the way you feel. And if I can get you to change the way you feel, I can get you to change the way you behave. Okay? For example, someone comes late to work and you're the boss, and when they get there, you begin to fuss at them and tell them they're late again. But then you listen to the individual and you found out that on the way to work, there was an accident and they had to walk 5 miles because the car wouldn't start, and they came to work. They came to work and it was raining and it was a wreck. And there was, so now though, you as the boss, you're going to change the way you think about that situation, which would change the way you feel, which would change the way you behave towards that individual that came to work late. So you want to renew the mind. So there are some things that you can do to support yourself, your thinking. Whether it be if you need to go and talk with someone professional to get medication, if you need to connect with your faith community, those who are reading the sacred text, there is a process whereby the words begin to renew your mind. You begin to find hope and faith, and you're renewing your mind by the things that you have been taught and things that you have been learning. And then you want to recalculate your resources and assets that bring you hope. There are some people, places, and things that you need to subtract from your life. They trigger bad memories. They trigger bad thoughts. There are some things in your life that you need to subtract. And you have to do that inventory for yourself. What is it in your life that you need to subtract? What is holding you back? What keeps you stuck on the side of the road? Then begin to subtract those things. And then there are some things about you, some empowering things about you that you can multiply. Think about all your strengths. Begin to use those strengths to help you overcome those obstacles in your mind and in your emotions. So you want to add that and multiply that. And then you want to add resources, add people to your life, such as coaches, mental health professionals, pastors and teachers and mothers and uncles and aunts and those who have wisdom. Begin to add these people to your life as a support system. And you will find you will be unstuck from the side of the road, and you will have taken a better path, a pathway to hope. And so, lastly, I want to give you some resources that I thought would be helpful for you in regard to if you have a need or if you need to speak with someone. Where could you turn to? Who could you turn to that's local? And I looked up, there was one place called the Kenya Counseling and Psychological Association.org. They help with mental health counseling and a host of other services, and it's right there in Nairobi. And then Destiny Life Coaching in Kenya. Destiny Life Coaching Kenya, that's also in Nairobi. And I think they do a fine job in coaching individuals through life, helping them to find the resources, helping them to reach their full potential, and as well as counseling. And then Befrienders Kenya. Also, when you get to a point where you just feel hopeless, or if you know someone that just feels so hopeless they can't take it, they feel like taking their own lives, there's a suicide hotline, and they have depression support. So if a person is depressed or having thoughts of suicide, or maybe if you're having those thoughts, reach out to them and get some support. They want to befriend you. And then there's Destiny Life Coaching, and then there's Kenya Counseling and Psychological Association. Those are three resources that are readily available for you right there in Kenya. And then I had some thoughts in regard to some ideas that you could do. You can start a mental health support group where you and your friends or family or coworkers are sitting down supporting one another, and you're talking about these amongst yourselves. This is at a level where you don't need to talk to a counselor. You're just stuck, but you just need a little help to get unstuck. You don't necessarily need a tow truck. Well, listen, that's something you can do. Also, you can use painting and art as a platform to express emotions. And to create a platform for dialogue and support. And you can even have a support group out of that alone. And then you want to speak with the spiritual leader. You can speak with the spiritual leader who is educated on the medical issues and not just the spiritual. You just don't want someone just saying, "Oh, yes, a demon. That's a demon. That's a demon." The Bible does address those issues, but it addresses more evil in people who don't have a diagnosis than it does in those who do have a mental health diagnosis. And then you have to be able to recognize that there are spiritual concerns that are not rooted in evil or demonic activities. Recognize that there are spiritual concerns that is real, that is relevant, but not everything is rooted in evil or demonic activity or possession, if you will. And then allow for your faith to support your mental health. Allow for your faith to support your mental health. I think there's a scripture in the Bible, I think it's in Romans chapter 12, verses 1 and 2, where it tells us to not be conformed to this world, but to be renewed in your mind. To be renewed in your mind. And when we think about that, in order to be renewed in your mind, you need to change the way you think, which changes the way you feel, which changes the behavior. And so the more you understand God's purpose and plan for your life, it changes the way you think, and then it changes the way you feel, and you'll be able to do those things that your purpose calls for in regard to your faith. And I hope that this has been helpful for each one of you. I thank you for your time studying and learning a little bit more about mental health. Take the exit that says hope. God bless you.